Hi, everybody. My name is Earl. I'm an alcoholic. And I have just a few announcements before we begin. Holy crap. First of all, one just minor correction. I am on Facebook. All right? So I am friends with a few of you in here, yeah. But there is another Earl Hightower on Facebook in Georgia. And a lot of my friends have called me up to say, I just realized it, but I've been talking to that guy for 2 years. I said, I got nothing to do with it. Leave me out of it. And enjoy your friend in Georgia. All right. I want to thank the committee for asking me to come share here. It's always an honor and privilege to do something like this. Thank you very much for keeping an eye on me. My first sponsor at one point looked at me and very calmly and sincerely said, Earl, you should never be allowed to walk the earth unattended. So thank you for attending me while I wandered about your lovely town. I want to thank all the speakers who come before me and who have yet to come. Amazing. I was here last night. I came in early. I thought I was going to catch Vinoy, but you all start on y'all. It's happening. Oh, boy. They're not going to let me on the plane, are they? Back to home. You start on Thursday. So I show up just bopping on in Friday afternoon, and Vinoy shot me an Al-Anon look, right, that will age any alcoholic a good 5 years right there in that moment. I sincerely apologize for not reading the brochure that I did not have. But we were together 2 weeks ago in Nolens, where we had a lovely time. When I blew the joint, she just blew the roof off that place, man. That was crazy. And last night, as always, Howard P. Oh, my God. Is that a talk or what? The light up ahead. Not the lantern on the end of the fishing rod, but the light up ahead. All right, so it's up to me now, I guess, right? I've avoided this as long as I can. My sobriety date's November 6, 1980. I came in and stayed. I'm one of those. I came here because I had no place else left to go. That's why I came. I came because there was no or. You know, you can go to the A&A or, you know, there was no or. It was just, if you don't want to die, you better go to that A&A. And I'll get to that, but I didn't start drinking until I was 12. I've waited as long as I possibly could. I had been restless, irritable, and discontented as a child. I had I guess a very common American home. I had a very violent father. And a mother who watched. And she was a lovely woman. She just didn't like to jump into certain situations, and I can't say that I blame her. And I would wake up in the morning, I was hungry, I was a little kid, right? 4 years old. I've been walking on eggshells since I was 4 years old, right? 4 years old, I'd wake up and I'd go to my bedroom door and I'd look out, and there's two ways to the cereal. You know, you could go that way or that way. And I'd stick my head out and I'd kind of just see if I could vibe, you know. Where is he? You know, and sometimes I got it right, sometimes I got it wrong, right? But I didn't like running into him in the morning, right? Not a pleasant fellow, particularly in the morning, right? And so that was just humble beginnings, you know what I mean? Just trying to avoid Dad, right? By the time I was 12, it had become obvious I was a strange child. Like, whenever you took your eyes off me, I jump the back fence and go down into the canyon, and there were the deer runs. We're down in the shrub, in the brush, down in the canyons where we lived. And I'd go down a deer run, and I'd pull off into the brush, and I'd just sit there still, like a stone. And right at dusk, and the deer would come down the deer trail, and they'd walk right by me, and I'd watch the deer go by. So I was tripping young, right? And then I got some Salt Lick, right? And just the deer would come by, and I just then the deer would lick the salt lick out of my hand, right? And go on, and I just right? Tripping hard. Me and the deer, man. And then all of a sudden you'd hear, Earl! Earl! Back up, over the fence, beaten, back to my room, right? So worth it. So worth it, man. Beat me all you want. I am tripping with the four-legged creatures. And again, now by 11, they decided, odd child. And they took me, and there was this school. Somebody in here has been to the original one. I talked to him earlier. But there was this boarding school that it was a 4-year school. And they were going to do this, what they called the Great Experiment, and they were going to have the first 5-year men. They were going to try to see if they could get kids to make it through 5 years of this school, have an 8th grade. So they tested basically the globe. And it was a 5.5-hour exam, and 16 kids passed this test. Me. One of them, right? And how I found out I had achieved this lofty goal that I had no interest in whatsoever was my father walked into my room and went, "Get in the car." I said, "Oh, all right. Apparently we're getting in the car," right? So I went out and I got in the car, and there was another car, and both cars were filled with relatives. I was like, what the hell's going on, right? And I got in the car, and my father got in the car, and we all drove and drove and drove and drove and drove, and we ended up at the base of a mountain at this place, and I got out of the car, and my father got out of the car, and nobody else got out of the car. And he put a suitcase down next to me, shook my hand, and said, "This will make a man out of you," and got back in the car, and everybody drove off. And I was devastated. I was like, what? Excuse me, but I don't know anybody here. I don't even know where the hell I am. Turns out I was a 5-year man at this boarding school, and I was the youngest and smallest kid of 250 boys. There were 249 13 to 18-year-olds and me, 12 years old. So I knew I didn't fit in. I mean, there's your proof right there. So I called home for 3 days, saying to my mother, "Listen, we'll just call this a parental mulligan, all right? You know, you just come get me and bring me home. I'm not even going to mention this. We're just going to act like it didn't happen. But you got to come get me now," right? And crying and yelling in the background, you hear my father, "Hang up," right? And my mother's, "Got to go," click, right? And I just remember thinking, oh my God, man. And I was just in so much emotional angst and pain, and and I just didn't know what to do, and I was terrified. The level of fear and anxiety was just overwhelming. And then just click, man. You don't want me? I don't want you. And I turned my back on my family and pretty much never went back, right? I just flipped the switch on them, right? And then I'm walking around this campus with my books under my arm, not making eye contact with anybody, man. I was 5 feet tall, 104 pounds. I mean, I was afraid of my own shadow, right? And I met Tiny. Every high school's got a guy named Tiny. He's like 6'4", 240, plays guard on the football team, right? Actually, he found me. I didn't find him. And he came up to me on the quad in front of all these kids, right? And he goes, "How you doing, punk?" And he slapped me in the back of the head and sent me and my books flying, right? Now, he thought he had just smacked a kid, right? He did not realize he had just smacked a person who goes from victim to assassin. That, has no knowledge of the middle ground. You know what I mean? I know about the two edges, It's like, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. I'm going to kill your whole family now. And that's what had happened. And I just got up and I walked over and I belted Tiny as hard as I possibly could, which had no effect on Tiny whatsoever. But I'm not backing down, man. I just stood there, and he looked down at me and he said, "Kid, you got a lot of guts." And he beat the crap out of me, right? And as I'm taking this beating, I'm thinking, this is going pretty good, Because he had said, "You got a lot of guts," before he whooped me like that, right? And that's all I needed to hear. I mean, as I was getting up and getting knocked down and getting up and getting knocked down, and the kids around me were like going, "Jesus, stay down, man." I was like, "Nope. I still got my legs." Bam. So my first tool for living was when frightened, attack. Because if you're attacking people, they don't know how scared you really are, Kind of like right now, right? Except I have learned not to attack, right? And thank you for that, by the way. So I go back to my room, and I'm waiting for the bleeding to stop, right? And word spreads across this campus like wildfire. Watch out for this Hightower kid. He's a maniac. He attacked Tiny, right? Right? So my inner life and my outer life are rocketing in opposite directions, you know what I mean? I'm this frightened, wounded, beaten child on the inside, and I'm a maniac on the outside, right? So I'm just sitting there just thinking, you know, my life sucks. And this guy stuck his head in my room. His name was Matt. And Matt said, "Do you want to smoke a joint?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And I didn't even know what he was talking about, right? All I heard was, "Do you want to come with us?" And the answer was, "Yeah, man, I'm alone in the universe. I feel like an astronaut sitting here, man, on a different planet. I'm not connected to anything. You want to go smoke a joint? I'll go do whatever that is." He could have said, "Look, we're going to go kill the Spanish teacher. You want to come?" I'd have said, "I'm in, man. Let's go." They got me in Latin. I'll go kill the Spanish. So we go down the dorm and we pick up Steve, and Steve had a Tupperware container full of cheap red wine. And I mean, no grapes involved red wine. You know what I mean? The fortified stuff. You know what I mean? It's the stuff where you should start. You know what I mean? It's where you should make your beginning, right? It's a rite of passage to knock a little of that stuff back, right? So we go to stand by this old oak tree, and it's two 13-year-olds and a 12-year-old. Babies. They're just babies. I look at 12 and 13-year-olds now, and I just think, are you kidding? I was that age, right? But, you know, no shaving, no nothing, you know, just, you know, getting high, right? And so he lit the joint and took a hit and gave it to me, and I took a hit and I burned my lungs, and I thought, oh, that's just awful, man. You know, give me that wine, right? Gave me the wine, took a pull on the wine, right? And it did that vapor thing, you know what I mean, where it just kind of wafts back up on you, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's bad twice, you know? You know? Give me that joint again. Let's try that again, you know? You know, and we did a few rounds of that, and all of a sudden, I mean, it happened, man. That thing that makes me bodily and mentally different from my fellows occurred. Suddenly I was comfortable standing where I was standing, doing what I was doing with the people I was doing it with. And I'd never felt like that before in my life. Like I said, I've been walking on eggshells since I was 4 years old. And I was standing on the earth, looking these two guys in the eyes, making friends, you know, not worrying about Tiny. Tiny wanted to give it another shot. I was game. Not that intelligent, but willing, you know. Family don't want me, I don't want them, you know? And I went to bed that night, and what I remember is this. I got to remember this. The truth is, it worked perfectly. For the first time in my life, I'm comfortable. I've never been comfortable in my whole life, right? And I don't know, is it the wine? Is it the pot? Is it my two very close personal friends, Matt and Steve? Because I'm feeling it. These are my boys now, you know? I don't know, and I don't care, because, you know, nobody died that night. No blood was drawn. Nobody went to the nut house. Nobody went to prison. Nobody went to jail. You know, all those things were going to happen, but they didn't happen that night. My experience was, feel better than you've ever felt before in your life. Nothing bad happens. Brother, I am in. And the next morning I woke up, and my first thought was, well, I got to find Matt and Steve. And I did. And I drank and used for the next 16 years on a daily basis, no matter what. Which is why I don't particularly care for that thing where they say, just don't drink or use no matter what. I don't understand that at all, man, because I drink or use no matter what. Given a good reason, I don't stop. Right? That's the problem drinker. You know, I'm an alcoholic. You can give me terrific, Earl, now, if you drink that, you know, very bad things are going to happen. My response is, well, I guess very bad things are going to happen. You know, Earl, if you take those two last pills, it's possible you could overdose. Well, it seems there's only one way to find out. I can't help it. I'm alcoholic. That's just the way this thing works, So it's a humble beginning of pot and wine. 12 years old, 13 was pills. The only reason I took a pill is I was at a party and the guy said, would you like a couple of pills? And I did it our way. I swallowed the pills and said, what were those? As opposed to the normal man who says, any idea what this is prior to my consumption? Take them. You're going up, you're going down. Either way, you're at it right here, right now, and that's the most important thing, Because, look, for all you specialists, my drug of choice is what do you got? No, this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I talk about alcohol all the way through, and I'm an alcoholic. There is no question about it. In the end, for me, it was all about the alcohol. I had no time to play around with drugs. Because, drugs I'm a child of the 60s. We were very focused on the drugs. Our parents are the alcoholics. We were carving out our own identity. We were going to kill ourselves in an entirely new way. So we're looking at the drugs. But let's face it, drugs are unreliable. There's no quality control going on out there. There isn't. You have absolutely no idea what you got until you get it in your body, right? You get yourself a quart of gin or a fifth of Jack Daniels, you know what you got here. You can count on that. So whatever else was going on with me, there was always a bottle on that table, right? Because you do so much cocaine, you can't get your mouth open anymore. You suck a little gin through your teeth, you can just settle down and go on with the party. You're all right. Right? Acid a little too spooky tonight? Don't worry about it. Jack will get you back in the comfort zone. You're all right. You're going to be all right, right? Alcohol is reliable. And when you're living the life I led, you got to have alcohol. It's got to be present, right? Or you are at great risk, right? So, it was pills. So I got strung out on Seconal, Tuinal, Placidil. I don't even think they make that stuff anymore, barbiturates, right? Because the only reason I ever found to take a Tylenol is if you feel the need to melt. That's what they're for, right? I like to melt today. 2 Tylenol for you. That's what they're for, right? 14 was psychedelics. The only reason I took a psychedelic is I was on a 10-hour pass from boarding school with a girl named Debbie. Debbie was a very bad girl. Very bad girl. I will love her till the day I die. And during the course of this 10 hours, Debbie said, would you like to drop some acid? And I said, yes, I would. And she took out a lipstick tube and took off the top, spun it up, and on the end of it was a little pill, which I thought was very clever. And I took it up and put it in my mouth and swallowed it. And Debbie said, did you take that whole thing? And I said, well, yes, I did, Debbie. It was very tiny. And she said, well, that was 3 hits of white lightning. I heard that guy over there. The guy just went, oh, that is incorrect. Yeah, next 2 days were very interesting. Or so I'm told, because I don't remember a lot about them. Sort of like the 70s, right? I've heard a lot about the 70s from other people. I don't remember a lot about that decade. The 60s were great. Missed the 70s. Got sober at 80. So anyway, about 650 acid trips later, I got classified legally insane by the military, but that's a whole other story we don't have time for here. But they basically decided if we declared World War III, they wanted me to stay home. You're just going to cause problems. Just get. And I showed up for my physical. I was ready to go. I said, yeah, I'll go. I'll do it. You guys seem to need a little help. I'll show up. No way. I thought it was rude. So 14 psychedelics, 15 started shooting dope. Had never occurred to me. I was on a boat in Marina Del Rey with a girl named Cammie. Lovely girl. And she said, would you like me to stick this in your body? And I said, Cammie, I am certain of it. And she did, and it was one of those shots where you just go, and And my head just bounced off the table. On the way down, all I remember thinking was, if I'm not dead, I'm doing that again. That was fantastic, right? Just instant what problems. I don't even remember being upset about anything ever. 15, I decided I'd had enough boarding school. 4.5 years of Latin was quite sufficient for my needs. And so I closed my Latin book and said, I quit. And got up and walked off, right? And so they threw a net over me, and my father came back in my life and said, you've obviously gone insane. And I said, like you know a thing about me, old man. And that didn't seem to help the conversation. They threw me in my first mental institution for 3 months of observation and a year of rehabilitation, because they didn't know what to do with those teenage drug addict alcoholics back then, right? So they threw me in a nut house and had me all lined up for shock therapy and brought out the little rubber triangle and showed it to me and showed me how they were going to put it in my mouth and tie me up and zap my brain. And I got very compliant after that conversation. What was that question you wanted answered again? So I eventually talked my way out of there and got back on the street, started doing what you do, right? And they threw the net on for me again. And I had learned by being in the nut house the first time, you got to get out before they get the Thorazine in you, or you're leaving when they say. Because when you're on Thorazine, they give you 3 little cups of pills a day, and you're shuffling around in the nut house, right? It don't occur to you that that's as fast as you can go. You don't have any need to go any faster than that. So when I made my first escape attempt, the first time in the nut house, I got a diversion and everything. There was a girl in there named Kilday, and all you had to do to flip out Kilday was say, Kilday, how you doing? Kilday just, wow! And Kilday just goes flying off that. And all the orderlies and everybody go running after Kilday. You know, the guy in the nurse in the booth would go, Kilday's in the northeast corner. Kilday's in the and they'd go get her. So I made sure I had lunch with Kilday that day. And we were sitting there, and I'm looking at the exit signs, just like they got them here, green exit signs, right? And I'm gonna make that door, man. Or, I was going, I don't know, that one over there, going that one, right? So I got Kilday all that. I got Kilday flipped out and ran that way, and I was ready to go. And I'm hauling ass, man. That's all I got. And out of the nurse's station, you hear the most demoralizing thing you've ever heard in your life. You hear, Ed, when you got a minute, you want to grab Earl. He's making a break for the door. Ed's over there having a sandwich going, yeah, I'll get him in a minute. He ain't going nowhere. And I got the arms working and everything. Damn. Back to the room and no doorknob. There you go. So the second time they threw me in the nut house, I knew about this. So I busted out of there during the intake process, right? They're filling out the paperwork. My mother's sitting there wringing her hands, you know what I mean? And I just said, well, it's a good thing you got a hold of me, man. It wasn't going real good out there. Hey, look at that. And I had some speed going, man. I mean, I was moving, and the bells and whistles are going off, and you know what I mean? I'm busting through doors, and I hit a backyard, and I'm running across a green lawn towards a 12-foot chain link fence. There's a guy right on my tail, man, and I ain't the slightest bit worried about this guy. I beat him to that fence, right? I got a theme song playing in my head, you know what I mean? I hit that fence just 1, 2, 3, over, gone. Spent the next 3 years doing what we do to stay, loaded out on the street. And I thought it'd be very romantic, very Jack Kerouac, you know what I mean? Wasn't like that. Very, very dehumanizing. And through a series of weird circumstances, I ended up in a very good business college in Northern California. Long story, we don't have time for it here, but I ended up in this joint. And I'm a drug dealer at the time, and I am because I have no morals, I have no ethics, I have no sense of family, I have no sense of community. I'm just a loose animal, right? I'm just trying to get through somehow. That's all I know about. And I'm studying marketing, production, distribution in college, and I'm applying it to my business. Business is booming, so I think college is outstanding. You know, I got a lot of expensive clients. You know what I mean? I think everything's going great, right? And they have a health fair, and I go to the health fair, and they're checking you all out and stuff, and I'm high, so I feel fine. Go to the health fair, And they did a bunch of tests, and they said, we think you need some further tests. And I said, well, all right. So I go get some further tests, and they said, it seems you have malignant cancer. And I said, well, of course I do. That sort of fits with how things have gone so far. So I had to fly back to L.A., and they did major surgery on my upper back, and they prepared me to die. They told me, my family, I'm probably going to die. I remember the doctor saying, you need to get your affairs in order. And I was like 19, 20 years old. And I remember looking at him. It was the first time it hit me. It was like, get my affairs in order? I said, I make a couple of phone calls, man. We're pretty much good to go here. I have done nothing with my life. I had nothing to show for the time that I'd been on this planet. And it really struck me, you know what I mean, that I hadn't accomplished anything. I wasn't even on my way towards anything. It was just loose, I was just in the world, taking up space, right? And they did the major surgery, and I beat the cancer thing, and I'm a long-term cancer survivor. And, yeah, thanks. Had a little scare a couple months ago, first time in 40 years. Went to the doctor and said, well, we got a little carcinoma going here. I said, well, cut it out. So they did. And I'm all healed up and things look good. So, clear sailing. Anyway, this isn't Carcinogens Anonymous. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. And where was I? College. So I'm in, do the cancer thing. I beat that, and I go back up north. I'm in college, and my mother calls me. I'm 21 years old. My mother calls me, and she says she's crying, which is not fair, by the way, moms. Sons have no defense against a crying mother, right? So she's crying. I'm like, well, just what? What do you want? And she said, you and your father, we're all coming back to L.A., and we're going anywhere you want to go, but we're going as a family for your 22nd birthday. Fine. I know what's going to happen. We're going to get wherever we're going to get. We're going to unpack. He and I are going to start duking. Everybody's going to start packing up, and we're going to leave the next morning. That's what's going to happen. So let's not go far. Right? So I fly back to town. Wasted, because I was wasted. If I was awake, I was wasted, right? And I get there, and my mother looks at me and goes, "Cute, get in the car." Right? So I got hair down here, right? I get in the car, and we get in the plane to fly to Guadalajara, and on the way there, the plane crashed. And my mother, my father, my little sister all died in the crash, and I survived. And I woke up in the plane wreck in Mexico. And my skull was fractured, my back was broken in 3 places, I was paralyzed from the waist down, had a bunch of metal sticking through my left arm, my leg was crushed, arm mangled. The only thing I could move was my right arm, and I was awake. And my mother was laying right over there, my little sister Kimberly was laying right over there, my father was laying right over there, and I couldn't get to any of them to help them. So I just laid there and I watched them all bleed to death. And it was so quiet, man. It was just quiet. And I just remember that, I didn't shake my fist at God. It wasn't this big, dramatic moment. I just quietly thought to myself, I got no interest in a God that would allow this to happen. Leave a lying, cheating, thieving, dope fiend alcoholic like me on the planet and take a loving, poetic, gentle creature like my little sister Kimberly. I got no use for a guy of this type, and I renounced God. And then a guy came up and scavenged, a bunch of them. They came up and they scavenged the plane wreck, took whatever they could find of value, and they left me up there to die. So I had no more love for you either. I was out, man. Out of the game. And eventually some other guys came up and they threw me in the back of a flatbed truck with my mother, and I held her hand, and they took us down to an aid station. They waited for me to die, and I didn't die, and they finally took me to a place called Hospital Fatima in Las Muchas, Mexico. Wasn't even finished yet. They took us there. And the federales, they got my ID, and they found out who I was, so that brought the federales, right? Yeah, Mexico had a little issue with my being back on their sovereign soil, but again, another thing we don't have time for here, but let's just say they weren't happy to see me. So they did what we call interrogation for 3.5 days through an interpreter, wanting to know what I was doing back in Mexico. Meaning they tortured me for 3.5 days. And I finally called a buddy of mine in Northern California, and they flew in a plane, and they plastered me from the neck down and flew me out of Mexico, and I ended up in a place in St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California. I was in there for quite a while, and I came out of there absolutely out of my mind. I had pictures in my head I couldn't live with. I was strung out on Demerol, a very powerful opiate derivative, and no idea how to be in the world. No idea. I couldn't run fast enough to shake the pain that was inside me, and the anger, and the fear, and the madness. I was just so wounded. And I didn't have any of those words, you know. I didn't know what I was. And I used for the next 6 years. And when I say used, I mean I got wrecked for 6 years. The only time I got sober was when I'd get so sick, they'd put me in this, my friends would throw me in the back of a car, and they'd take me to this bootleg sanitarium. You had to know a guy who knew where the nurse was, right? And you'd walk in and you'd give your money and your bottle of Valium and your wallet and your car keys and your gun or whatever else you had going on, you know what I mean? And they'd give them 150 cash, and they'd strap you to a gurney for 72 hours, shoot you full of anticonvulsants, and let you rock. At the end of 72 hours, they'd strap you and let you up. Now, at 72 hours, my kick's just getting going, right? I mean, I'm sick. And about the third or fourth time, the last time I was in there, I sat up, and the nurse said, "Now, Earl, you know you're an alcoholic, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." You know, I don't even know why we need to discuss it, right? She said, you've got to know, for you to drink or use is madness. And I said, "I know that. I'm not an idiot." And she said, so you're going to be a good boy, and you're not going to drink or use anymore, are you? And I said, "Hell no. That's it for me." So I went in, and they got back all my stuff. And I was walking out to the car, my hands were shaking. And I thought, well, I can't drive like this. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Valium is medically indicated here. And so I took what I consider to be a moderate dose of Valium, 40 milligrams. And woke up in Oakland 4 days later. And I don't even know anybody in Oakland, right? And that's what it was like for me, just blackouts and madness and violence and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And by the time I got to my final day of drinking and using, I came out of my last blackout. I was 215 pounds. I was yellow. I had hair down to here. My thyroid had shut down. The sac around my heart was swollen. My thyroid didn't work. My liver and my kidneys were just as angry as they could get. I'd broken 74 bones. I'd been stabbed twice, shot at. I had over 650 stitches in me. The police were outside. My family was dead. I had nowhere to live. The police were deciding whether or not to charge me with the attempted murder of David Luboff, which I have no recollection of whatsoever. And sober, I'm the most peaceful guy you'll ever meet. But it's just a classic Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you know. And what I had is what they call in here a moment of clarity. And it wasn't, none of that stuff made any difference to me at all. None of that stuff I just mentioned was going to stop me drinking. None of it. What stopped me was, my moment of clarity was of a spiritual nature. I experienced that I was not connected to another human being on the face of the earth, and that was a direct result of my drinking. And if I didn't want to die drunk, I was going to have to find consciousness other than that which I currently possessed. I needed something I didn't have, and I didn't know where to get it. So I just threw up 2 busted hands, and I said, "Help me." And they said, "That's the magic words," because there was an ambulance and a cop car outside. And some friends of mine grabbed me, and they threw me in the ambulance, and the ambulance took off before the cops even knew what was happening. And I went off to a place, and they pumped my stomach and said, "Get him out of here, he's going to die." And they took me to Olive View Medical Center, and they put me in a room with this guy for 3 to 5 days. I don't know how long I was there. All I remember is I went in this room, and I'm sitting on the edge of my bed. I'm just shaking like a dog. I'm so sick, I can't even believe my heart's still beating. And there was this guy laying in the bunk next to mine, and he He was laying facing away from me up against the wall. And he was this long guy with long, black, greasy hair, man. He looked awful just from the back, right? And he rolled over and sat up on his edge of the bed, looked across at me, and I thought, my God, that's an old junkie. I mean, that's like finding a unicorn, you know? Right? And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's got to have some stories, man. You know, he can distract me from how I'm feeling. And before I can say anything to him, the guy looks at me and he goes, dude, you look bad. I said, oh, my God. I said, all right, I'm just going to lay down. Right? I just kept getting worse, and they put me in an ambulance, took me to a place called Long Beach General Hospital, and it was 42 guys in one room. It was 21 cots, army cots, on each side of the room with sheets drawn between the cots. And it's called riding the cot. That's how you kicked. You got in the cot and you grabbed those wood rails on the side and you just hung on. I threw a couple seizures in there. And, you know, nobody ever slept because somebody was losing it at any given moment. 42 guys, you know, there was never a calm moment in that joint. At no point were 42 guys feeling pretty much okay. You know? Not in that room, right? And how you got your cot was you had to stay. You had to stay. If you wanted to go, you could go. But if you wanted to get sober, you had to stay. That was your cot. And I stayed in that cot for 47 days. At the end of that 47 days, Ray W. said, Earl, if you don't want to die, you better go to AA. And I'll never forget it. After what the last 6 years of my life had been, right, trying desperately to stop drinking and not being able to. Just hopeless, just completely hopeless, knowing I was doomed to die an alcoholic death in the gutter. You know, dying had become an acceptable consequence of my drinking. I wasn't suicidal, but if I died, I died. I just couldn't shake it, right? And they said, go to AA or die. And I just remember thinking, really? Come to this, has it? Got to go to the A&A, huh? I've never been, but I know all about it. Bunch of old guys sitting around in a circle putting a plug in the jug. What are you doing today, Bill? Well, Earl, I'm not drinking. Good for you, Bill. What are you doing later? Well, Earl, I'm probably not going to drink. All right. Riveting. I'm new to this thing, man. I'm in trouble. I mean, you got any advice for me? Well, yeah, you probably shouldn't drink. I was sure that's what this was, right? I thought, oh my God. Just take me out back and put a cup on the back of my head and let's just call it a day. You know what I mean? Maybe the Buddhists are right. I'll come back as a butterfly or something, you know. So I ended up I went because I didn't have any place else to go, right? I was sleeping on a friend of a friend's aunt's couch. Right? The least aware human we could find. Let me stay at home. And I ended up in the basement of a church on a Friday night, and I walked in the door with my alcoholism in full effect. You know, like Howard talked about. You know what I mean? The physical phenomenon of craving, the physical aspect of my illness had been, for the most part, taken care of. You know, my cravings would come on strong, but they were intermittent. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing. You know what I mean? I had moments where I, wasn't craving alcohol, right? But the obsession of my mind was in full effect. My alcoholism was raging, and I walked in the back of that room, and I checked where all the doors and windows are, and I sat with my back up against the wall, and I found the guys who seemed to have the juice in the room, who was running the joint, and I slid up on them, and I burglarized that conversation, and I slid back into my chair, and I looked up on the wall, and they had those scrolls. This was for the group, the traditions, and I said, I am not a group, do not need that. And the steps were for the individual, and I read them, and I said, I understand that. What else you got? Because I thought understanding it was what was necessary. I didn't get it. I sat in the back, and they said a bunch of stuff, and and I couldn't focus or concentrate on anything. I mean, the Serenity Prayer. You lost me a third of the way through that. You know what I mean? How it works. Are you kidding? It's like, we'll get back to that later. That was, they've rarely seen something, and there's 24 things or 3 things or something. I don't know. I'll try to do better next time. And then a bunch of other stuff, and then this guy got up and talked for 10 minutes, and I went, yeah, okay, well, he's gone, and there's that. And then this other guy got up, and his name's, and our speaker tonight is Bob. Bob got up and talked about what it was like for him, and I said, yeah, me too. He said, and this is what it was, and then this happened, this is what happened. I said, yeah, that's kind of like what happened to me. And he said, and this is what I'm like now. And I went, well, you lost me there, man, because that, I got none of that. And then they said, you should keep coming back. And I said, all right. And I know so little about this, I thought that's the meeting where Bill spoke, right? So I was going to go back the next Friday night and hear Bill talk, right? And I went back the next Friday night and it was like, blah, 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 when does Bill come? When does Bill come? And our speaker tonight is Betty. It's like, what? Where the hell's Bob and who the hell is Betty? Guy next to me goes, you're new, aren't you? And I said, what is your point, man? I do not know you. And he started to break it all down for me, which was more than my head could possibly tolerate. I mean, my head was like, get car, go meeting, here, Bob, go home. And meanwhile, while all this is going on, I'm trying to find out what the hell's happening. Betty's, making her move for the podium, man. She's like 75 years old, got a little hair helmet on, you know what I mean? She's, got a little spring dress on. She gets up the podium, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, how am I going to get this hour of my life back, I'm sure I got a lot in common. I'm 28 years old. I'm sure I got a lot in common with Betty, who drank sometime in the Civil War or something. Going to hear stories about moonshine. I don't know, And Betty gets up and goes, hi, I'm Betty. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Betty. And Betty says, in my day, if you were a reasonably good-looking woman, you could walk into a bar and for 50 cents you could drink for 2 weeks. And then broke down how you go about doing that. And when Betty sat down, I looked at the guy next to me and I said, Betty is a badass, man. I would roll with that lady. That lady. He is fearless, right? And I walked out of there thinking, what's going on, man? I'm identifying with a 75-year-old woman. So I may have snapped. That's probably what's happened, is that, it's downhill from here. I'll be a babbling idiot in 4 to 6 weeks. That's all I got left. But I just, they said, no, there's more meetings. I started going to more meetings, and people said, you got to get a sponsor. I said, what's a sponsor? They said, a sponsor who's got what you want. I said, well, I would like to drink. And they said, maybe a little early to be throwing the ball back in my court. And I have since come to believe I want a sponsor who's got what he wants. That's a very good definition of happiness, wanting what you have, right? Which is how I see my life today, right? It's wanting what I have, right? As a result of being with you. And slowly but surely, I found myself falling deeper and deeper and deeper into the midst of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you are new, what I found in here was pretty simple, really. And it's true. I went to a meeting one day, and they were doing the step 4, and I went, that's good, because that baffled me. I didn't understand that at all. And a guy raised his hand and said, well, I do the 4-step, boom, 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 boom. And I thought, makes perfect sense. I see no reason for us to continue with this meeting. And the next guy raised his hand and he said, well, when I do the 4-step, I do boop, 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 boop. And I went, a little different than the other guy, but I think I can incorporate that, But I really think we should stop now. Third guy raises his hand. When I do it, boop, 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 boop. And I'm thinking, now I know why they don't let me bring a gun in here. Because these people are starting to flip me out. I'm losing touch with step 4. It's slipping away from me. I can feel it. And about the 5th guy, I'm out of my mind. And all of a sudden they go, Mike, and it was a guy named Mike R., the late Mike R. He was sitting in the back of the room, and he's a big guy, right? Just big old hands. And he raised up a big book in his hand, and he goes, my name's Mike. Has anybody in here read this thing? And I just went, oh, good. And Mike said, according to this, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, this is how you do the 4-step. And then he read what was going on in the book. And I thought, good, so then I can forget what those other guys said, and I'm going with that guy. And that's when I started to recognize that there were two things in AA. There was the fellowship and there was the program, and that they were different. That going to these A&A meetings did not mean that I was working a program. It meant that I was engaging in the fellowship, that they were sustaining me until I healed up enough to be able to concentrate long enough to absorb a single paragraph out of that book. And as soon as I was capable of a paragraph, I was held responsible for a paragraph. And I could hold down 2, I took 2. And then it was 3. And I had a sponsor, me and another guy, and we got some tapes. The original Joe and Charlie, the big book Comes Alive. We got those tapes in our big books, me and my friend, right? And I wish I had a video of that or a tape of that I could watch. The two of us knuckleheads sitting there with our books open and that tape playing and underlining stuff and going, Because I'm not kidding you, man. Every 5 minutes, one of us would stop and go, hey, you know that thing they say in meetings? Here it is right here. It's right here in his book. And they actually kind of explain it even better in the book. Right here, they go on to explain in depth that simple statement that we hear all the time, right? Every 5 minutes, it's like, oh, there's another one. They said that, there it is. And we went through the steps, right? And we were doing it because we were sponsoring all these guys, and all these guys were going, when can I do the 4-step? And we're like, column 4, resentment, hold on, we'll be right with you. Column 4, there's some sex, fair. We were being shoved through the steps by our sponsees, right? And so we took them through, and then we did our first book study, and it was 8 people. And that was 27 years ago. I was 8 years sober at the time. It was 27 years ago. And all 8 of us are still sober. We're all still sober. Yeah. One of them's mean as a snake, but we're all still sober. It's the book. It's the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that was designed for us. They knew who was coming. We were coming, right? So I worked the 12 steps. And what I found in here was I found a triangle with a circle. Ancient spiritual symbol stands for mind, body, and spirit brought together as a whole human being. And therein lies the balance I've sought my whole life, and I've never had drunk or sober. Alcoholics Anonymous adopted that symbol, and it's the same thing. Mind, body, and spirit, unity, service, and recovery. Unity's the body. I bring it here. Because I can't get sober, but we seem to be able to. What's the first word in the steps? We. All right. Testify. Yeah. Let's get this thing jumping. You feel like shouting out? I'm cool with it. Just come on in. I don't got to do this thing by myself. So unity's recovery. I bring it here. Recovery is of the mind. I got to work the 12 steps to be relieved of that obsessive thinking. That's what they're for, right? So that I can be comfortable sober. Because this isn't about stopping drinking and using for me. This is about how can I stay stopped. I could not stay stopped. And so the 12 steps were designed to make that possible for me. I'd been comfortable and I'd been sober. I had never been both at the same time. You guys told me that was possible. I took it on faith. That you weren't lying to me because you hadn't lied to me so far. Right? So I worked the 12 steps and they're very simple. Step 1, what's the problem? Lack of power is my dilemma. Powerless over alcohol. Whole life's unmanageable as a result of it. That's my problem, lack of power. What's my solution? Step 2, that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, soundness of mind, relieve me of the obsession to drink. Not a bad deal. Now notice, I'm sitting on the couch at home. Step 1, yep, that's got to be it. I tried everything else. Step 2, I'm in. Got to be. Tried it all, right? Step 3, right? Better do something about this information, knowing my problem and my solution. All right, so I got down off the couch, got on my knees, and turned my will and my life over to the care of a God I did not understand. I know people who say they understand God. I just quietly step away when I hear that sort of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I see evidence of God on a daily basis. I'm an orchid guy. Orchids. Heroin to orchids is a natural progression. Don't let anybody tell you different. I was in a what do you call those places? A nursery. There are holes in here. It was a big jump to nursery, right? I was in a nursery, and I found there was this orchid, and I said, that may be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, right? So I'm looking at an orchid, and remember the psychedelic days, right? So I'm looking at the orchid, and I looked at it just a second too long. And I fell in to what I believe was a parallel universe. And I was just one with the orchid for a bit. I'm not sure how long. And suddenly I popped out, and I looked around, and I found my wife, and I went, hey! And she looked at me, and she said, I've been right here. I said, all right, take it easy. I just wanted to let you know, I think we're going to need quite a few of these. And she said, I am not surprised to hear that. All right. She's used to me, right? Okay. How many of these do you guys have? Because he's going to want a lot. Somebody get a trolley. Bring them over to the car. So my house is full of orchids, man. I see them and I go, power greater than myself. Evidence of. Right there. Bam. Right? That's all I need. And it's everywhere I go, the plant life, right? I mean, everywhere you go. I mean, I hang out with my plants. I look at them, throw them a little water. And I'm thinking, well, they're breathing in the oxygen, the carbon dioxide, and breathing out the oxygen. I'm breathing in the oxide, the oxygen, and breathing out the carbon dioxide. I combined them there for a second, didn't I? Right? I'm feeling close to the plants right now, so I was just kind of giving us both a little of what for there. But they breathe in the carbon dioxide and out the oxygen. I breathe in the oxygen and out the carbon dioxide. We got a little thing going here, right? Right? So a little water in them, it's like, here's a little more for you, my brother. Here's a little more for you, my sister. There is a kinship here that we have with the plant life. We need each other. We work on this planet together, right? They don't scurry about like we do. They're a lot more stable than we are. So I hold them in high regard. So it's problem, solution, decision. 4 and 5 is me. 6 and 7 is God. 8 and 9 is you, and there isn't anybody else to play with. That's the whole team, right? So 4 and 5, I swallow large chunks of truth about myself. 6 and 7, hook it back up with God. Ask God to remove the defects of character because I'll remove the wrong stuff. 8 and 9, I'll hook it back up with you. Notice the order. Get it squared away here. Hook it up there. Head it out there. Right? With this in mind, I'm very, very sorry. Here's your money back in the house. 10, 11, and 12, keep me in the game. 10, me, 11, God, 12, you. Because I got to keep this deal going. This will go as deep as you want to go. It's a bottomless well. How deep a trip you want to go on. We got you covered. Right? So if you're new and you're thinking, it's kind of superficial, stick around. It goes deep, right? You stick with us for 2-3 years, you'll be looking out of your skull from a different angle. There's nothing out there heavy. There's no better trip out there than the one that's going on in here. If you are new, I didn't expect that either. Lost track completely where I was. The hell with it. It doesn't matter. If you're new, this is a design for living. It goes way past not drinking and using. It's a way to be on this planet and be comfortable in your own skin. Remember when you in the beginning, that first shot, that first fix, that first drink, whatever it is you were doing, you were just looking for that. We have that for you. We have that for you, and it's available with every breath you take. Because here's the magic of this. It's really footwork, but it feels like magic, is this. When you were out there, if you're honest, whether you were going up or down was kind of secondary. Well, I'm a coke addict. Well, good for you. You know, or I'm a crackhead. I wouldn't brag about that. You know, I'm an alcoholic. You have my condolences. You know, it's all rough. It's all rough, man, and it gets rougher every day. That's the thing about it. Beautiful up front, easy up front, and with each passing day, you work harder and harder and harder to get a smaller and smaller buzz. In here, exact opposite. You pay big up front. They say there's no big deals in AA. I respectfully disagree. I think that 30-day chip is remarkable. I mean, a 30-day chip is fueled by fear, basically, of what's out there. Because, I mean, what deep, meaningful grasp of the 12-step process do you have at 30 days, you know? You can't even read them all without zoning out in one direction or another, you know what I mean? Just got to start over for the 12th time, you know? But in here, you pay dearly up front for that seat. And that's why we love on you newcomers as much, why we pay so much attention to you, why you get so much from us, why we hold you so close, because we know how tenuous the grasp is in the beginning, right? And as you get your legs under you, you get more space, you get more freedom, you get more, you know what I mean? And the next thing you know, you've worked through those 12 steps, you've been around meetings for a while, and all of a sudden we're saying, well, you know, start giving that away, and you sponsor another guy, and then you're in the human chain, you're locked in, you're good to go, right? But we hang on to you, because the longer you stay, it gets easier and easier, and the buzz gets bigger and bigger. Like, I listen to Howard P. talk, and it's straight tripping from the moment he starts until he sits down. And at 8 years ahead of me, he's the light up ahead. I now call him the lantern up ahead. He's the light up ahead. Vinoy, light up ahead, right? I was in, like I said, in Orleans with her 2 weeks ago, and she took her program to the next level, man. If you can get a hold of her, the tape of her in New Orleans last weekend, get it. Alcoholic, you know, Al-Anon, you know, if you're alcoholic, you're an Al-Anon, whether you know it or not. You know, it's just, you know, sorry to break the news to you, but, you know, you thought you had one thing? No, you got two. Because you used to be the freight train rolling through your life. Well, guess what? You're with us now. Every seat got a freight train in it. What was I talking about? Oh! I mean, no, he goes, you're talking about me. You see what I mean? Now that's powerful Al-Anon right there. Screw that sober stuff. Get back to me. Every time she puts those boots on, man, this happens. But if you're a specialist, you're thinking it's all up, you know, I go up. That's what's most important, that I go up. Well, I don't think so. All you guys like me, you know, down and out. Alcohol, heroin, you know, barbiturates. These are a few of my favorite things. You know, my idea of a good night was sitting around checking my pulse. You know what I mean? Just right in there. I didn't need a window. I didn't need a TV. I didn't need a woman, man. I was just, that was my world. I liked that, right? But was that primary to me? No. It wasn't about up or down. It was about getting out of right here, right now. For all of us, because right here, right now, we're restless, irritable, and discontented. Right now, right here, right now, I'm afraid. You know, I can't get comfortable in my own skin. So that's what up or down's about. I like going down and out, but if you don't have any heroin, I'll take a big bag of the cocaine. I'm happy driving the freeways decoding license plates. Let's go. You know? Psychosis, I'm in. You know, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's about right now. And there's the only place you can live life. As Al says, just get between those. Just get in there. Right here, right now. Because that's all we have is now. That's the only time I can love you is now. The only time I can be your friend is now. The only time I can honor you or serve you is now. That's all there is. And that's what drinking and using robs me of, is now. So every day that I drink and use, I murder that day. I rob myself of that life, that moment in life. What Alcoholics Anonymous does for me and all who went before me that taught me was it gave us back now. It gave us back life. It gave us back the ability to be in this moment, to be here with you, so that when I look Phyllis in the eye and I tell her I love her, she knows I'm right here all the way 100%, and it's true that I love her for coming so far just to see me. And when I look at my friends Leslie and Katya, that I've loved for years. We got sober in some very, very dangerous times in Los Angeles. Right? And we made it. And here we are. All three of us with long-term sobriety. Right? They're locals with you now. So y'all, man, Nashville just got raised up. Those two girls right there. I tell them to take a bow, but they'd kill me if I did that to them right now. So, if you're new, come get right here, right now with us. We'll show you how to get back into it now. We'll show you how to get back into living life. We'll show you how to get back to loving and being loved. When I was on that mountain in Mexico, I swore I'd never love another human being as long as I lived. And there's no way I'd ever tell you who I am. So there's no way you could love me. I didn't introduce you to this guy. You liked him, cool. You didn't like him, I didn't care. Nothing to do with me. And now, AA picked my pocket like a thief in the night. Robbed me of my anger. Right when I went to go for it, it wasn't there anymore. Took it from me. Got me telling you the truth. Got me telling you who I am. Got me able to tell you that if you got a seat in this room, I love you because I know what it takes to get a seat in this room. I love you. Yeah. Yeah. I do. You know? And you know what else I know? I know you love me. You know? And it feels good. It feels good to be loved by my own kind. So if you're new, congratulations. Stay with us. Find the people who got the light in their eyes, because they're the ones that have caught fire with this thing. And they will freely give to you what has been freely given to them. Right? I was raised by the late, great Donald Madden. I was with that man and spoke to him every day for longer than I was with my parents. He raised me. Donald Madden was raised by Norm A. And then, you know, I'll start breaking anonymities and stuff like that. But let's put it this way. When I was 5 years sober, this is the last story and I'll shut up. I was 5 years sober and I heard about a Roundup, a thing called the South Bay Roundup in Redondo Beach, California. And I thought that sounded very Western. There may be some cowboys or something down there. You know what I mean? I'll go to that. Called up my sponsor, said, am I allowed to attend such a thing? And he said, yeah, go on. Click. I said, all right. So I drove down there, paid my registration. The guy said, the big meeting's going on, go on in and be quiet. And I said, I know how to do that now. I can be quiet. And I walked in, got up against the back wall, just, you know, stood up and was just paralyzed. There were 2,500 alcoholics and drug addicts sitting in one room being completely quiet while one guy talked. Kind of like this. And I thought, who the hell is that guy standing up there? They got all these people to choose from, and they got that guy up there. What's his deal? And it turns out the guy's name was Franklin W. from Olive Branch, Mississippi. And he was one of the first circuit speakers that traveled around trying to create some continuity in what we were doing here in this A&A deal, right? And he was talking for a minute. All of a sudden he said, I'll sum up Alcoholics Anonymous for you in 6 words. Those 6 words being trust God, clean house, and help others. And I had a spiritual experience. And I just started crying. And I don't mean tears rolling down my cheeks. I'm talking the lip-sucking crying. You know what I mean? They're standing up against the wall going... That's the truth. I just unraveled back there, man. And about 4 or 5 guys in the back row turned around and looked at me and went, look at that. They got another one right there. That guy got him. And I'm going, yeah, he got me, man. I don't know what to do. You know, and I cried all the way home, and I called Donald up, and I said, Donald, we got to trust God, clean help us. I swear to God, it's unbelievable, man. And he goes, oh, I know, baby. Click. You know, I said, I'm glad he got off the phone because I don't know much else to say. You know, And I was just telling everybody. And then 16 years later, I'm 21 years sober, and I'm the Saturday night speaker of the Texas State Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous. Big deal. Convention center, big deal, right? So I strap on a suit and tie. I'm an imposter when I put on a coat and tie, unless I'm going to court. Which I rarely do anymore. Right? And what was I saying? So I go walking into the meeting in Texas, right? And I'm scared to death, like I am before I talk. Every time I talk, still to this day, I'm scared to death tonight, right? So I'm scared, and I'm thinking, oh God, man, this is the night where they're all going to go, yeah, and just walk right out of the place, right? So, and there's a guy sitting in the front. His name's Searcy. Searcy at the time was 91 years old. He'd been sober, married to the same woman for 59 years, and he'd been sober 58 years. And I was like, he said, Earl, come over here, I'm telling a story. And I was like shocked the guy knew my name. I was like, okay. I walked over and I sat down, and he's talking to these other guys, and he said, so I was talking to Bill and Franklin. I went, time out, man. You can't just like throw that out there casual like that. You were talking to Franklin W., Olive Branch, Mississippi, First Circuit speakers doing the blah, 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 and Bill Wilson, co-founder AA Bill, and he goes, yes, I'm trying to tell a story, Earl, do you mind? And I went, I apologize. Please continue. He says, so we were talking, and Franklin asked Bill, what is the heart of this thing that we must protect for the generations that will come? And without hesitation, Bill Wilson said, no problem, Franklin. You got to trust God, clean house, and help others. And I had another spiritual experience. I thought, I'm on the right track, man. I'm on the right track. That's the heart of this thing. That's what the 12 steps are all about, those three relationships. Relationship with self, relationship with God, relationships with other human beings. Can't have anything else. And I've got to focus on those three things in the order that the steps suggest I follow them in. That I've got to stick with those basics and pass that on to the people that are coming, that are following me. That's how much time I got left. Thank you. I thought I was long over by now. I talk fast. Norm Alpert, they used to say, was the only man who could give a 40-minute talk, a 2-hour talk in 40 minutes. Right? He was my original sponsor, Norm A. Amazing guy. If you ever get a tape of that guy, buckle your seatbelt, right? So he says that, and he just blows the top off my head again. I have another awakening, right? And I get up and I said, I had this whole talk about him, but I want to talk about, what is it we're really doing here? And that's what I talked about that night, was that thing that, and there's so many things that have happened to me along the way that I can't even begin to tell you. I have a life, I lead the life of a much better man than I actually am. I'll repeat that. I lead the life of a much better man than I actually am. Because without you, I am self-centered and afraid. Without you, I cannot consider you. I cannot take you into consideration. I'm a bad man. I'm not a bad man going to come to your house and kill your whole family, bad man. I'm a bad man meaning I can't consider your feelings. I can't consider what's going on in your life. Don't walk up to me and start to tell me about your day. I'm not that guy. I don't care about your day. I'm very busy over here. Getting loaded, recovering from getting loaded, figuring out how I'm going to get loaded. That's a lot of work. Right? And that's one last thing for you new people. You sit and you think, they're talking about, go to regular meetings regularly, get a sponsor, work the steps, and get out on myself and serve other people. They got, these people got a lot of nerve. They're asking a lot out of us. Let us rethink that. Think about what you were doing the last 6 weeks before you got here. That's hard work. What we ask for is nothing. It's nothing. And you get everything back. I don't mean to be picking on you newcomers. I just want you to know how much I love you and how much I respect you coming here. That guy the other day who got up here and I talked to, I looked at him and I said, dude, you're so much braver than I ever was. I never took a chip. I was too afraid to get up in front of the room. I didn't take a cake till I was 3. And the only reason I took a 3-year cake was I was 2 and a half and I was at the Wednesday night wrist slashers meeting. My kind of meeting. Right? And my sponsor took a cake for however many years, and he said, "My name is Donald Madden, I'm an alcoholic." And that is the miracle of my life, and who needs to know that is me. And he sat down. And it was like he branded that in my head. And that was March 5th of that year. That was his birthday. November 6th of that year, I turned 3, and I went to the Wrist Slashers meeting, and I had Donald Madden give me a cake. And I said, "My name is Earl Hightower, and I'm an alcoholic. The miracle of my life is that I'm sober, and who needs to know that is me." And I sat down. And I sat down next to Donald, and I looked up at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "Oh, that was wonderful." And I said, "Well, you said that last March." And he said, "Of course I did." Keep coming back. It works. I love you. Peace.